Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BC Girls Podcast. We are your hosts, Matoba,
Hanfil, and
Akane.
Hello, everyone. So today's topic is a bit on the heavier side, but we're going to be talking about how 9/11 showed America our ability to unite. Now, unity is a state of being that many people associate with peace and love and happiness, all these great ideals that humanity has been striving to attain since the beginning of time. And so, what we're going to be talking about is our understanding of unity and showing you an example of what it means to unite and what it looks like and how we can possibly attain it. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Hanfil.
So I just wanted to give a little brief summary on 9/11. So on September 11, 2001, there were 19 militants associated with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda that hijacked 4 airplanes, and they carried out suicidal attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of those planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C. And the 4th plane, which I found out while just researching this, crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. These hijackers were Islamic terrorists from Saudi Arabia and several other Arab nations, and they were reportedly financed by the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization of a Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden. In total of 2,996 people were killed in the 9/11 attacks, including all 19 terrorists aboard all the airplanes and throughout the various locations that were hit. That was a brief summary about what happened during 9/11 and how it happened. And this is President George W. Bush's delivered address, a snippet of his address to the American people. He said, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." So while reading this quote, while researching in this article, a sense of unity felt like it was drawn into this. Like, I was able to interpret it as like President Bush was really saying that American people really need to unite with each other, and this is just a moment, great turmoil and like uncertainty right now, but that is supposed to bring us together even more and make us be able to move on forward. So that's kind of what I was able to get into it.
It's very interesting. Former President Bush saying these acts shatter steel, but they cannot deny the steel of American resolve. And it's really true. Like, when us Americans, when we are united on a certain issue, we're unstoppable. We're the strongest when we're united. And I just wanted to share this quote from Cheryl Roth from an article that she wrote called "Unity is the Alpha and the Omega." In it, she says, "The world is a mess with disunity. If people don't understand and value it, then separation becomes the norm. We cling to our personal viewpoints and feelings as if they were God. If people can't find a higher vision and motivation for coming together despite differences, then problems arise." And this really makes me think about how during 9/11, people were united, but the thing that united them was a situation that was very harmful, very traumatic. And I would also say that even fear united people. And although there may be great immediate results, like people helping one another regardless of their race and regardless of their capabilities or money or class, status, any of those things, like people really genuinely did try to help one another. donations pouring in from all over the country, etc. And so that was a great result, of unifying over an issue like this. However, it wasn't really true unity, in my opinion, because fear was the guiding force of it. And I mean, if you look at America right now, it's kind of like we're still, we're not there yet. We haven't attained full unity, true unity. And people are still clinging to their own personal viewpoints and feelings rather than stepping into the shoes of another person that's completely different from them. And so that's why it's important to find a higher vision and a higher motivation, one that is true, one that is good, one that is pure and holy, one that promises a bright future versus something that doesn't.
I can agree with that too because I feel like in the society that we're living in now, it seems like a very somewhat selfish mind point, but kind of like I'm just thinking about me, myself, and I, or like just me and my family. We're not really going out of our inner circle that much to seeing how we can help our community members, how we can help much of our neighbors or anything. It's just like I'm kind of living in my own world, but not really seeing. I see what's going on through the news or social media, but it it doesn't relate to me, so I don't really need to pay attention to it, or I don't really. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So I feel like it's definitely important to like talk about this as well as just like kind of state this is kind of the place that we are in, not just America, but in different parts of the world too. Um, that this is the kind of the world that we're kind of living in, and we're very much straying away from like living in like a kind of community or really feels like this world is like a family because I feel like we really are like a world of different cultures and ethnicities and races and we are like one big family, but we're all just living in our own little squares and places that we just don't want to be bothered. So
Yeah, and I really like that idea, the whole family thing. We're one big family, but we all have problems with each other. We all are like, I don't know which countries would be the siblings and which countries would be the parents, right? But regardless, we're all like fighting each other,
mhm,
and we can't really see past what our differences are, and we're holding on to the things that are different about us, and we're allowing it to divide us. When
mhm,
really, I think those differences are there because they're beautiful and unique, and that's how we were all created. We were all created beautiful, unique, different from one another. Otherwise, if we were all the same, it would be very boring. If we all had
yeah.
the same interests or if we were all the same color, had the same culture, it'd be a very boring world to live in. So we do need to take time to celebrate our differences in culture, in music, in how we interact with one another. And I think there's so much that we can learn by looking at other cultures, looking at other groups and peoples and societies and seeing how they live and implementing the best things of those societies or countries into our own systems. And like, for example, the idea of just working constantly to make money. I know that America's pretty much like that. You work, work, work. But in other countries, like, people don't work as much or spend as much time in an office or in their working like that, and they spend more time with their family, and because of that they're happier individuals and happier people and happy families. So that's just like one example of something that I think America could really do, good with, if we had the time to chance to spend more time with our families, really truly loving one another, understanding our differences and accepting them and coming to love them too. If we had more time to do that, our society would be so different. Our nation would be so different.
This quote reminds me of the reaction videos of like, for example, like what would you do if the homeless person is here? Would people actually, be a human and give that, like, that person food or water, anything that he or she needs? Like, watching that video makes me realize how we're not, it's so quote unquote strange for people to help the homeless. Not because like the law says like, hey, if you help them, you're gonna get fined. Some places are like that, but it's like you can't really see that anymore because there are rules. It's so nice to see how other people are actually helping the ones in need, how we're actually supposed to do. So this quote really has its meaning of how, like, it says the world is a mess with disunity. Indeed, no one is helping each other. So now it's like broken up into so many pieces. Now there's so many sides, and now it's like a puzzle piece.
Right. And I think after reading a lot of like spiritual texts, not sorry, after reading a lot of like religious texts and just like psychology, um, reading a lot of different opinions about this idea of unity and where its core is, I understand that like love is at the core of unity. You can't unite with somebody that you don't love. And that in itself is such a hard concept for people to grasp and even me, I still kind of, struggle with that because, well, then the question is, what is love? Like, what does love look like in terms of relating to your neighbor, relating to people you don't see every day, people who are going through hard times? How does that love express itself? Um, and we haven't had so many examples of that. And I think it's really sad that the news that gets articulate, I think it's really sad that the news that we see is always about something tragic that happened, like a car accident or a house burning on fire or somebody got shot in the street. We see so much examples of suffering and hardship, and we don't see enough examples of people loving each other, people helping their communities, people reaching out and extending their hands. There's so much like greed and selfishness and you know the world revolves around me versus me revolving around the world kind of mentality. And so it's very hard to understand love, like truly understand it. I mean, I feel like the only time in society we talk about love is if we're talking about romantic relationships, between boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife. Um, it's always just love is only existing in the romantic realm, but we don't talk a lot about siblings love, like love between siblings, love between the parent and child, love within the family. That never gets talked about, and that's such an interesting topic that we could potentially talk about. Love within the family. But how can we? We don't have enough examples in our everyday lives of loving within our family, or not a lot of people have that. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have stable family, parents are together. We didn't really struggle so much. We did have our ups and downs, like, everyone else. That's life. But I grew up with a lot of friends who only had one parent, didn't know the other parent, or didn't know any of their parents, didn't have any family. So the idea of love is very hard to grasp for a lot of people because they don't have it in their lives. So then how can they understand what true unity looks like, right?
I feel like I've had that conversation with my mom before about the news is very depressing to watch. It's not very uplifting, and you don't feel any motivation to continue really watching it. And the sad reality is that these kinds of news are more intriguing to some people. They'd rather see car accidents happen, people like war, and like it's excitement, but hearing about like really of like peace, and it wasn't enough for people. And I find that mind-boggling, because I'm like, how, like, we're feeding ourselves this bad energy, this bad vibe from the media. I feel like that's not what should we be getting, especially like we're not the only ones seeing it. Children are seeing it, young adults, teenagers, and that's what they're looking into. And I don't they it's not that positively influencing to be like, oh, I'm living in a good kind of world that I would love to thrive in and, contribute to. So yeah, it's it's not the best. And like it kind of leads into like what's going on in our society today, and like the social media and all over the news about Afghanistan. I don't know if our audience member know a lot about this, but from what I was able to find out and research a little bit, is that Afghanistan is now being overruled. This is actually the second time that this has happened, overruled by the Taliban. This Taliban I found on this counterterrorism guide. It's a government website, or it's like they are a Sunni Islamic nationalist and pro Pashtun movement.
And just for also all the audience members who don't know, a lot of the terms that she just mentioned are like religious ideologies. So if you want to understand more about that, we'll have the links below. But yeah, a lot of it involves ideology, religious ideology.
Please look, it's just very brief. I wanted to just mention, because like I feel like this is a clear example of like how disunity we are. It's not just in a country, but like our how we are in the world, because America was contributing into like helping Afghanistan with thriving with not just their military, but with the country as a whole, and also helping them being overruled again by another terrorist group. But unfortunately, like things like this has happened, and like there's just so many mixed like communication, and so many things that are going on. Like now President Biden really wants to fully withdraw our US troops by August 31st. That is what he mentioned and he stated. But in one of the articles that we'll link down below, it mentions that, but he says they will still keep US troops if needed, if they would need them at all. So it kind of, the words are a little bit kind of not so solid from our president. So I was just like, there's a lot of things, and it's a lot of mixed feelings, because we still have some US citizens and foreign citizens like in Afghanistan trying to go home. They're trying to flee, and Afghan citizens who are trying to flee from the situation. And it's very sad to see. And like I think the best in this part, as like a country, even though we're not physically there to help people, I feel like getting ourselves more educated about what's really going on, because I've heard about this growing up but didn't know too much about it. um but I feel like kind of researching about it, make sure you look at the right sources, kind of knowing ways that you can contribute, like you can either share some donation page, or donate if you can, or you know find out more that you're able to know about this, but also like kind of maybe bring up a, doesn't necessarily like you need to bring up this kind of conversation to like put yourself down, but just to be more kind of aware what's going on in the world, kind of thing, because it's good to be aware of what's going on in your surrounding world, in a way to see, I feel like, how you can have like a better mindset of like moving forward, not just like being in a very sheltered kind of view or mindset. Because like I feel like that's kind of how I grew up on. I didn't really want to pay attention to news because it's so depressing, but I feel like I wasn't really informing myself of what's really going on. So that's just a personal intake for that.
So I wanted to share another quote from the founder of our faith movement called the Unification Movement. He says, "If there is no unity, there is no happiness. If there is no unity, there is no peace. If there is no unity, there is no hope." So let's bring it back to 9/11. So I'll pass it on to Akane.
talking about hope and unity, there are organizations that help with unity and hope, such as for 9/11, the topic right now. Since there was a lot of people that we've lost, there were many family members who were suffering from that loss as well. And many of the family members actually created foundations bearing the lost one's name. And there's one big one that I don't know if many people know. There was an organization called Todd M. Beamer. He was a passenger of the United Airlines Flight 93. His wife actually created this foundation. And the foundation is about addressing the long-term needs of children who actually lost a parent as a result of the terrorist attacks. But now it actually changed the name to Heroic Choices. It's providing free counseling to those children who actually lost their parents or any experienced trauma from the age of 8 to 12. And there are many others, but this is a really big one because he was one of the passengers of the United Flight 93 who actually he sacrificed himself to save others on the plane that he was in. And his I wouldn't say last words, but his call to action is let's roll. That sounds kind of cool. Let's roll. Now during the pandemic, I wouldn't say it's the same, but there are many lives lost due to the pandemic, due to the virus. And now there are many nonprofit organizations and companies that help during the pandemic. Some of these organizations like Feeding America, Doctors Without Borders, of course, the big one, WHO, the World Health Organization, and the Red Cross. I wouldn't say stabilize other people's lives, but they help to those who are in need. So Feeding America, they ensure food banks across the country to feed those in need. And Red Cross, as you can tell, I don't know if many of you know the Red Cross, but you probably know them for donating blood. So people can donate blood. If you're healthy, donate blood during this tough time if you can. And yeah, there's a list of nonprofit organizations that you can help. There are many companies that help other people get back to the norm, such as donating masks or shoes for healthcare workers. Shoes are a big thing. And even clothing too, such as T-Mobile, Verizon, L'Oreal USA. They help donate masks, as I said before, shoes, clothing, food, and also stores too, grocery stores. Because like how seniors, many of them are, their immune system is, it's not as young as it's been before and probably not working as it used to. So grocery stores actually help the seniors to be able to shop. Like some of them. So for one example is that Trader Joe's, they open their doors only to seniors every day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So they are they could freely be able to shop whatever they need instead of being worried for their lives because of the pandemic, and it feels like freaking zombie world right now.
Zombie land.
It really is a zombie land for the seniors, at least. Risking their lives to go anywhere. But all in all, I would like to address the difference between the 9/11 tragedy and today's pandemic. So I would say, comparing those two, I would say that everyone is pretty much very selfish right now regarding to mask and saving other people's lives. So that kind of disrupts the unity, and hope is now dying off because I wouldn't say many young ones, because older people actually, address this. that they don't want to get the vaccine or they don't want to wear a mask. It's killing them, the mask. The vaccine, many probably know as, there's tracking devices, which if there was, it would be a big thing right now. And no one would have gotten the vaccine, not even the president. So what I wanted to say is that we all have to help each other, not because, it's the right thing to do, and like, it's not like this world is like so hopeless, pretty much. You gotta think about others, not yourself. Now's the time to go help others, either donating or helping others with groceries, or even getting the vaccine, please, and wearing masks outside. Because there are people who are unable to roam, because there are some people whose body isn't able to fight off the virus, that now you see there are people in the hospital. Even though they're not they're unvaccinated, there are vaccinated people that actually get the virus and get sick. Think about others and not yourself.
Yeah, and that was very straightforward. But yeah, I just wanted to also say, like, I know some people are like against getting vaccinated, and all I say is, if you're not going to get the vaccine, or if you don't want to get the vaccine, it is ultimately your choice, and nobody should force you to do anything. But that being said, if you're not going to get the vaccine, then you have to if you're not going to get the vaccine, then you have to be responsible for your own actions. Meaning, wear a face mask wherever you go. Don't get too relaxed and comfortable thinking that the virus isn't going to hit you, or you're not going to get as sick as you think. A lot of people have thought that they weren't going to get the virus, or that they weren't going to get as sick as they were. And as a result, ended up either infecting others or dying themselves. And that nobody should wish for death upon anyone. If you do, then you really got some things to work on. But and no one really wants to see, no one wants to live in that kind of environment. No one wants to see that, people losing their loved ones. So please be responsible for your own actions, and think about how you are affecting somebody, because you don't want to get vaccinated. So yeah, that's my thing. Because I see a lot of friends, on my social media pages who are like really promoting this whole idea of it's my body, I do whatever I want. And yeah, it is your body. You do whatever. I guess you can do whatever you want. Nobody can force you or control you or push you to do anything. But you have a set of responsibility, not just to yourself, but to other people. You're not living in this world by yourself. You didn't come into this world by yourself. You didn't get through living in this world by yourself. You had to rely on others. You had to rely on people. So please be responsible and do the right thing. Make sure you wear those face masks, as difficult and as challenging as that may be. Listen, I work at a warehouse. I have 2 jobs. One of them is working at a warehouse. Trying to lift boxes, and transport things and sort things out while wearing a mask is not easy, which is why I got vaccinated. But regardless, I still wear that face mask, even though I'm vaccinated, and even though they told us that we didn't have to if we were we didn't have to wear a face mask if we're vaccinated. I'm still wearing that face mask. A, because I know not everyone else is vaccinated. And B, because I know that I could potentially be carrying the vaccine and not be affected by it. but somebody else that I come into interaction with could be affected by just interacting with me. So that is what I mean by being responsible. And don't go out as often too if you don't have the vaccine, especially with this variant. Like, like just stay home.
Like, think about it. We've been waiting for this vaccine to come out to this world since the pandemic even started.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's a relief that there's a vaccine, but now we probably have to get another type of vaccine that kind of eliminates the mutated COVID virus, because it's mutating as we are speaking right now to those who haven't gotten vaccinated.
Like, and it's just like the flu. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just like the flu or any other, virus. It mutates. It doesn't just die. You have to continually get... Exactly. You have to continually get protection against those things.
So if you don't want to get... I mean, yes, getting the vaccine and getting the side effects is pretty scary. I mean, I got scared at first. But I was like, but if it's worth me not being able to hurt my family or even my friends, potentially, if I were to go out. I wasn't planning to go out anyway. But, like, at least I'm safe. I'm in the safe zone, you know? I don't have to worry about killing one another and become a criminal, you know? I mean, obviously, we're not going to go to jail because we have, like, the virus and now that person, passed away. But, like, it's still the same thing, you know? You killed, like, you possibly have
indirectly killed someone.
Yeah. So you're like, I don't know how people kind of go out. I mean, this is just me being an introvert and not going out because I'm scared to death right now, even though I'm vaccinated. But like, still, like, I don't want to kill nobody. I don't want to go out there and be like, okay, I'm vaccinated, but probably still have it. I don't know. I don't want to kill nobody. I don't want to kill somebody who I care about. There's gonna be like a lot more deaths. I mean, we're still counting deaths right now, which is horrendous.
Yeah, it's really sad. But yeah, let's bring it back to the talking about unity. No, this was us expressing our opinions. I mean, obviously you don't have to agree with them. But still, it is important to be responsible.
We're just raising our voices, so you don't have to follow.
Yeah, we're expressing our frustrations, if you will. But yeah, that too, though, is showing disunity. You know, the fact that we can't even unify over being healthy for one another, like, is crazy. Like, but this is what we're talking about. Where there is no unity, there is no hope, happiness, or peace. And that is currently what we're experiencing right now on multiple situations that are happening in the world today and in our own country, America. We're not living in a world of peace because we can't unify. So 9/11 did show us, though, a really good example of what it is for a country to unite under one goal to help others who are in need. And I think we need to go back to that spirit of, being there for one another. And I know that when, 9/11 comes, every news outlet is going to be talking about the history, and they're going to be talking about what had happened and how Americans came together. And every year they do this every year, and it's so interesting to me how, like, every year I'm learning something new, something different about how the firefighters and the policemen, and the people that were standing around looking at the Twin Towers after the fact of it being brought down, how they really all gathered together, not just to help the people that were stuck or killed, but help the families, as Akane was mentioning earlier. And so it's so beautiful to see that, and even in the music world, and there were many songs written about 9/11, but really to express not just the tragedy but the unity that happened, and it's so special. And I wish we were living in times like that now, where we were more unified, because all this division is really just pushing us farther and farther away from that goal, from that vision of living in peace. So this is the end of our episode. If you have any comments, questions, remarks, please leave it down below in the comment section.
Thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at BC Girls. You can also listen to this episode on Spotify, which will be linked down below.
Let's all create a better version of ourselves. Until next time.